If you were fixing your bra straps, fussing with wires, or battling your bra during this podcast, stop right now. You'll want to hear this. Those bra problems, those problems you thought you had to live with, Third Love has solved them. Their bras make it easy to get what you want, whether it's ultimate cleavage, a smooth look, or stopping your shirt buttons from pulling. With over 60 sizes, including half cups you won't find anywhere else, you'll never be stuck between two sizes that don't fit. So stop settling for bad bras. Now's the time to treat yourself and get your problem solved. Save $15 on your first order with code PODCAST15 at thirdlove.com.
Hi, everyone. This is Jillian with Court Junkie. Court Junkie is a true crime podcast that covers court cases and criminal trials using audio clips and interviews with people close to the cases. Court Junkie is available on Apple Podcasts and podcastone.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 322 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I'm still trying to figure out if I have a concussion from running into my wife's SUV rear gate.
Yeah.
But other than that, you know, if I don't get all the words out right, I want to put that out up front.
Well, you have that nice bruise on your head, too.
Yeah, it really hurts.
You know, I like the intro to this. Every time I hear it, man, I just want to get my drums out and just go crazy on them.
Okay. Oh, you're a drummer. The little drummer boy.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Jamie Blanks.
What's going on, Jamie?
Monica Abner.
Hey, Abner.
Lang Morgan.
Well, what's up, Morgan?
Olivia Brininger.
That's Brininger.
Okay, could be.
Yeah.
Terry Dasher.
There's Dasher.
Heather Norwood.
What's up, Norwood?
Emily Markram.
Hey, Markham.
Adam McAllister.
What's up, Adam?
JB Sparks SP.
Well, thank you, Sparks. Puh.
Becky Lou Forbes.
What's going on, Forbes?
Barbara Porter.
Hey, Barbara.
Carol Laura.
Hey, Laura.
Who I know has been with us for a long time.
Yeah.
She must be coming back. Stephen Brandt.
Hey, what's up, Stephen?
Tennille Walters.
Well, appreciate that, Walters.
And last but not least, Wendy Sanzo.
Hey, Sanzo.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Maggie Kimbrough.
What's up, Kimbrough?
Yeah, appreciate all of that support. And then we had some PayPal donations from Ann Kelly.
Hey, Ann.
And a really large donation from Carrie Beinlich.
Well, thank you, Beinlich.
So a great supporter of the show. Gibbs, right now on True Crime All the Time, we have an episode out on Kristen Durgan. You know, this is kind of a fascinating story about a couple married, both having affairs.
Yeah.
One person at least having multiple affairs and the other having a very long-term affair. And then one of them ends up murdered, and it's a whole tangled web of conspirators and accomplices and all of that.
It's a must listen to.
Yeah, definitely check it out. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am ready.
We're talking about the Fisher family murders. On April 10th, 2001, Scottsdale authorities responded to a fire in the 2200 block of North 74th Place. Inside the home, they found the bodies of 38-year-old Mary Fisher and her two children, ages 13 and 10. They didn't die in the fire. Mary Fisher had been shot in the head, and all three victims had their throats cut. The husband, Robert Fisher, was missing. And over 20 years later, Robert Fisher has still not been found. So kind of tough to start out the episode with such gruesome details. But you kind of have to say these things to tell the story. But it's hard to imagine, especially, you know, if you think it's the father, Robert Fisher.
Right.
that this person could shoot, his wife in the head and cut the throats of not only her, but the two young children as well.
Yeah, you might have some major anger problems with your spouse, but how do you do that to your kids?
I don't know, man. I never understand it. Robert William Fisher was born on April 13th, 1961 in Brooklyn, New York. He grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and graduated high school in 1979. Robert's parents divorced when he was 15 years old. His father got custody of him and his sisters, which I always think is strange. That's not the norm.
No, it's not.
It happens. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. We know it does. But by and large, when you look at divorces, most of the time, the children go with the mom.
Especially back then.
Robert joined the Navy after high school. He served in the military from 1979 to 1982. After he was released, he worked as a firefighter in San Diego County, but he was forced to quit due to a back injury. According to Unsolved Mysteries, Robert met his wife, Mary Cooper, in high school. Mary was born in Illinois in 1962. The Arizona Republic reported that they met at a Baptist church social group. The couple married in 1987 and bought their house in Scottsdale that same year. They were married for 16 years.
It's a long time.
It is a long time. Robert's father-in-law, Bill Cooper, told the Arizona Republic that he was the best husband you could ever ask for and the best son-in-law we ever wanted. So, right off the bat, that seems like such a strange statement coming from the father of a murdered daughter.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what was going through his mind at that point. Was it Robert? Did they think it was Robert? Or did they think, well, there's no way that Robert would have done these things?
Because he was the perfect son-in-law, perfect husband.
Yeah, or was that a quote as in, this is what we thought of him before? That part, I don't know. There wasn't a lot of context around it. The couple's daughter, Brittany, was born in 1988. Robert Jr. was born in 1991. The Fisher family was very involved with the Scottsdale Baptist Church. Mary taught Sunday school, and Robert was active in the men's ministry. They also spent a lot of time outdoors. Robert enjoyed hunting, camping, and fishing.
So they sound like they were kind of the perfect family on the outside.
Now, we always talk about how can you ever really know what a family is like behind closed doors? No, it's not always possible. But I would think most people would have said from looking at them at church and from the outside in, it's a great family. They got a lot going for them. Robert participated in state lotteries for big game hunting permits. He also hunted small game. He hunted with firearms and a bow and had taken state firearms and bow hunting safety courses.
So it sounds like he was familiar with the different weapons. Sounds like he was familiar with being outside, hunting, and just.
I think he was an outdoorsman.
Yeah,
let's put it that way. Pat Mueller, a close friend, told the Arizona Republic that Robert was extremely adept at outdoor survival skills and could live off the land. Mueller told the paper, if he gets into the back country, it will be very difficult to find him. Arizona is full of mine shafts and caves. He's a good hunter, and he's got a water purifier, food and water. That's everything he needs. He's not a car camper.
You are a car camper.
I'm not even a car camper. I am not a camper, period.
No.
But I do have a lot of things at my house, and I've disclosed this before.
Sure.
Survival type gear.
Yeah.
It's more of emergencies, tornado, loss of water, stuff like that. But what I'm getting about Robert is that this is a guy who, if he needed to, could get off the grid and survive. And I don't know how many people are really set up for that, but there are some people who are and can live off the land and live in a mine shaft, come out, hunt, and then go back down and cook and purify their water and just live that way.
I don't know if people really understand how difficult that could be if you're not accustomed to it.
Yeah. You ever seen any of those shows, Naked and Afraid, Alone? I mean, there's a bunch of them out there.
Yeah.
None of that stuff is easy. And those people aren't wanted or being hunted by the law.
That's true.
In Scottsdale, Robert worked as a cardiac lab technician at the Mayo Clinic. He placed shunts and catheters inside patients' hearts who were undergoing surgery. Mary was the office manager at H&L Medical Specialists. Robert collected disability and had to take prescription painkillers to deal with the pain from his back injury. Now, to me, that adds a wrinkle to the being able to survive off the grid. This back injury, how bad was it really? Well, was it bad enough to the point that without the prescription painkillers, he couldn't function?
Yeah. It's going to make it a little difficult to do some of the stuff that you need to when you're on the run.
I would think so. People who knew Robert described how he enjoyed talking about his family. Overall, to most, he seemed like a happy and very stable person. He didn't have a criminal record. He was said to have been friendly. He was the type of person who would always show up where he was needed, and he would be a few minutes early. He paid cash for almost everything and made double payments on his mortgage, which was the only debt the Fishers had.
So it sounds like, again, on the outside,
got his stuff together.
Yeah. Things are looking good. Happy family, friends like them, like him. And this guy has no debt besides a house.
Right.
I mean,
So we're not talking about a big financial crisis at this point.
No burden.
His parents' divorce had long-lasting effects on him. For example, Robert refused to take his kids to Disney because it was the last place his parents had to fight. He confided in an associate that he thought his life could have been different if his mom hadn't left the family. Robert's mother-in-law, Jenny Cooper, told the police that Robert didn't socialize often with family because he feared getting too close to people and losing them.
So it sounds like he had maybe some anger issues towards his mom.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true. And I think the other thing it just shows you is, what divorce can do to kids and how those effects can last well into their adult years.
Yeah.
I can still remember like it was yesterday, and I just turned 50 years old, the last movie that I saw with my mom and dad.
Yeah.
Before they got divorced. And I was, 10 or however old I was. It wasn't very old, but I can remember it like you and I taping last week.
Yeah. Had that much of an impact on you.
It did.
Yeah.
It was Coal Miner's Daughter.
Yeah.
Was the name of the movie.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe, Robert had these issues with his parents getting divorced. And maybe one of his fears was if his wife ever wanted to leave him, he probably might not want that to happen because how it impacted him impacts his kids the same way.
But to the point where he didn't want to get too close to people, even family, because of the fear of losing them. I think that is really telling you a lot.
How hard it really hit him.
Robert Fisher to most seemed like a normal family man, but he had a dark side that few knew about. Detective John Kirkham from the Scottsdale PD told Unsolved Mysteries, Robert was a very private person. Outwardly, he was perceived as a good father and good husband, a church-going man. During the investigation, we found that Robert Fisher had a number of faces, a number of masks that he wore. And I think that's the case with a lot of the people that we talk about. I mean, how many times do you hear a neighbor or family member interviewed and say, oh my gosh, this person was the best.
Yeah.
They helped me anytime I needed help. But what they didn't know was that was just one face. That was the face that the person wanted them to see.
Right.
But they had these other, personalities, if you want to call them that, or other faces that they wouldn't show to the public. And I think there are a lot of people that do that.
I think so too.
Not even killers, just
people.
Just people. I mean, you don't show the Rex West persona to everybody.
No, I do not.
I mean, you got to pay for that privilege. So I mean, that's a different kind of reservation, holding that persona back.
It's hard to do sometimes.
It is.
But I have to.
Robert Fisher vowed that he would never be divorced, which the police suspected was the reason he later murdered his family. Robert and Mary had been having some marriage problems, which they kept secret from everyone but a select few. And again, I don't want to harp on it, but I do think it's important. All these people saying, this is a great guy. He's a good family man. They have a great marriage. They have great kids. Yeah, that's what you're seeing because that's what they want you to see.
Right.
But behind closed doors, how many people are having spats and having fights that are really all about problems that they're having in their relationship? Well, they're not going to tell you about them.
Of course not. But I'm going to bet there's more than people realize for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's not easy being married.
No.
I mean, anybody listening who's married knows that.
Yeah.
It can't be walking on a cloud 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's just not how it works.
Right.
In 2002, over 1,000 pages of police documents were released to the Arizona Republic. These documents detailed the problems between Robert and Mary. A detective wrote in a summary of an interview with a family friend, Robert was an ultra control freak. He said he would tell the kids what time to get up, what time to go to bed, what clothes to wear, what to eat. Robert would not allow Mary to have anything but white paint on the walls and only let her put up a few pictures.
Okay. A little strange.
Well, and this controlling thing, man, it pops up in so many different episodes that we do. Unsolved, solved, where, and it's mostly men that we're talking about, are controlling of their spouses or their, significant others to the point where it's really scary stuff.
Yeah. Only have white walls.
I mean, who wants to be told as a spouse how you can decorate, what you can wear, what you can eat, what time to get, there's got to be a little bit of give and take, some breathing room. It was also reported that Robert and Mary often fought about sex. He was emotionally abusive towards Mary and the kids. For example, he once sprayed Mary with a hose after she spoke up.
Yeah, that's never going to go well.
No.
Take the kitchen hose spray or even a
outdoor hose.
Yeah, I can't see that ever going well while you're arguing.
Oh, so you think it'd be okay if you weren't arguing?
You might be able to have that.
That almost came out.
It did. You might be able to have a little bit of fun.
A little playful.
Yeah.
If it was playful, yeah, I don't know. My wife might still get mad.
Yeah.
But the being told what to do, kind of every second of the day, like being in the army almost. That's not what you want in a relationship.
No.
And I think it's never a good sign. And then we get into the area of being emotionally abusive towards Mary and the kids. And when I think about all of this, it often makes me think of that movie.
You mean that movie with Julia Roberts?
Yeah. What's the name of it?
It's,
well, don't be shy. Just spit it out.
I know. I'm thinking, where she turns the cans.
Yeah.
And yeah. Man, why can I not?
Everybody knows what we're talking about. We just can't think of the movie, but he was so controlling of her and abusive, I think both emotionally and physically, to the point where she made the decision she had to get away. But I go back to that movie a lot when I think about or talk about some of the things that we do. Robert's mother, Jan Howe, told the police that she advised Mary to stand up to Robert. She talked to Mary about her marriage to Robert's father. She described herself as a yes sir wife and said she never stood up to her husband. She saw the same characteristics in the early stages of Robert and Mary's marriage, but after she talked to Mary, the marriage seemed to improve. It was said that Robert complained to his family and friends, and he seemed embarrassed that his son didn't like to hunt and fish. He once decided to teach his kids to swim by throwing them out of a boat. Some said that it seemed like Robert spoke more fondly of his dog than his children.
Sometimes a man's best friend is their dog, but your kids come first.
Oh,
you know?
But here's the thing, right? The dog probably obeyed.
Sure.
Didn't speak back, where that's a little tougher for kids to do.
It is. And it's not a fair comparison, but obviously he chose to compare his dog to his kids, but
pretty rough if you're one of the kids.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard the story about kids being thrown out of the boat and that's how they learned how to swim. I mean, I remember hearing that from one of my parents, and that their mom threw them into the water out of the boat and sink or swim. And
yeah, it doesn't seem right.
No, it doesn't.
I don't know if you've seen the new thing going around on TikTok.
No.
About, I don't have TikTok, but somebody was telling me about this, and it was a really young girl wearing like those arm floaties, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was almost like they threw her off the boat.
Oh.
And as she was going down, the floaties popped off.
Oh my gosh.
And she just sank, but the video ends.
Oh, wow.
And so you don't know what happened. It's, I guess it's being talked about a lot as kind of very, very scary. Yeah. I don't know if that's a good thing. I can only say that's not the way that we taught our kids to swim.
Me neither.
Angie's List is now Angie, the home to skilled neighborhood professionals. Angie is your home for everything home, and they've made it easier than ever to connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. If you own a home, you know how much work it can take, whether it's everyday maintenance and repairs or making dream projects a reality. It can be hard just to know where to start, but now all you need to do is Angie that and find a skilled local pro who will deliver the quality and expertise you need. Angie has over 20 years of home service experience, and they've combined it with new tools to simplify the whole process. Bring them your project online or with the Angie app. Answer a few questions, and Angie can handle the rest from start to finish, or help you compare quotes from multiple pros and connect instantly. And all of that means you can take care of just about any home project in just a few taps, because when it comes to getting the most out of your home, you can do this when you Angie that. Download the free Angie mobile app today or visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com. Robert and Mary also fought about money. Mary said she got a job to buy toys for the kids and to have a security fund. There were other incidents of problematic behavior. Robert once played a practical joke by sneaking up on families who were having a picnic and firing his pistol in the air. And he once pointed a pistol at his friend's head.
That's a big no-no.
Yeah. So Robert has gone from seeming like the all-American dad to seeming as though he's got a litany of problems.
Yeah.
And at the very least, very, very poor judgment and, being controlling and abusive towards his family. I'm not sure how anyone would think that's a practical joke. You see this family having a picnic and you sneak up on them and fire a gun in the air?
I won't be laughing, and maybe I have to go to the
bathroom,
take a change of clothes with
check yourself,
check myself,
because you probably wrecked yourself. But also think about pointing a pistol at your best friend's head.
Oh, yeah.
If you come over to tape and we're sitting here, we're like 4 feet apart,
right? And
all of a sudden you just pull out a pistol and point at my head.
Yeah,
our relationship's probably going to forever change.
Yeah, I think it's going to be different.
I don't know how we move on from that. In May 1989, Robert shot and killed a stray pit bull that wandered into his yard and was fighting his dog. Robert actually talked to the Arizona Republic and said, "If we didn't have the gun, my dog would have been dead." So tough subject, right? Anytime we talk about the death of a dog, but I think there are dog owners who maybe would sympathize with Robert here, because you have a dog attacking your dog. What are you going to do? Now, I don't know that most people would have a gun with them to actually shoot the other dog or even be able to, but you're going to try to protect your dog. And in this situation, he decided that what he had to do was shoot the other dog. The problem with the whole thing was that police later said Robert orchestrated the incident by purposefully inducing the fight between the dogs so that he could shoot the pit bull.
Yeah, so he ends up being the monster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That he is a monster. He wasn't saving his dog because he orchestrated the whole thing.
He used his dog basically as bait to get it going
so that he could shoot this other dog.
Yeah.
It was said that the Fishers' marital problem started back in 1999 when Robert wrote a note to Mary confessing that he cheated on her. He had a one-night stand with a sex worker at a massage parlor. Mary kicked Robert out of the house and said that she needed some space. Few people knew about this incident, but Robert told some friends he went to the woods in northern Arizona and contemplated ending his life. But he came home and decided to live a better life.
So being in the woods changed him.
Well, I don't know what changed him. I did think it was odd that he wrote a note. He wrote a confession note. He couldn't even sit down and tell her face to face, right? He had to write it in a note for her to read.
He was this tough guy before then, dictating when people were going to eat, what they were going to wear, what color the walls were going to be, but he couldn't tell her directly what he did.
So he intended to be gone for a month, but he came back a few days later, promising to be a godly father and husband. According to the Arizona Republic, the couple decided to get counseling at their church. Myrna Bitzer, Mary's sister, told Unsolved Mysteries. Robert had told my dad often that divorce was not an option. He would not be divorced like his parents were. Robert stated that several times. So it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And we know how it impacted him as a kid. And I'm sure that's probably one of the major factors why he doesn't want to get divorced.
And I think it's going to ultimately be a major factor in him doing what I think most people believe he did.
Yeah.
Killing his family. Family, friends, in-laws, and church members thought Robert and Mary had a wonderful marriage, but Robert was struggling. His colleagues later told the police that he confided in them about his pain over his parents' divorce, hinted at struggling with addiction to painkillers, and his worry that he contracted an STD from a masseuse. In 2000, Robert contracted a suspicious UTI. According to one colleague, the police reports stated Fisher related to her that he was having a very hard time with his situation involving another female. Fisher went on to tell her that he had gone to a massage therapist because of his back. Fisher told the colleague that he had obtained the infection from the therapist during the session.
I think maybe he was at the wrong type of massage therapist place.
Yes. Yeah. You're not into occupational therapy, occupational massage, licensed massage. Right. At that point, you're at what a lot of people would refer to as a rub and tug, I think is what they call them.
Did you just say rub and tug?
Yeah, I think that's what they call them.
Well, on that happy ending, let's move on.
Yeah, I think we should. About 6 months before the murders, Robert started to withdraw from church activities. His weightlifting buddy said he stopped seeing him at the gym. Robert's pastor asked him what was going on, and Robert told him work was busy. Mary continued being active in the church's children's ministry. Assistant pastor Steve Daniels said that Mary never let on, that there was a problem, but she didn't really open up to anyone. Detectives later learned from Mary's close friend that she was thinking about getting a divorce.
Well, she was probably afraid to say anything to anybody because if it got back to him, it could be devastating.
Yeah, or dangerous to her, the kids.
Yeah.
In the weeks before the murders, Robert was seen by his colleagues reading the Bible and hunting magazines. He became paranoid and thought people were looking at his records. He also believed that church members knew that he cheated with the massage therapist, and he was concerned about being kicked out of the house again. So, I'm really reading from that there's a high level of paranoia on his part.
Yeah.
Anytime you hear someone thinking that, everybody's talking about them, everybody knows their business. 4 days before the murders, Robert spent the afternoon doing chores. He changed the oil on his truck. He also shopped for attic insulation. One of his neighbors later questioned why he would do this if he was planning to kill his family a few days later.
Well, I get changing the oil. If you're going to decide to go on the run, you want to make sure your truck's running as best as it can. The attic insulation
It's a little strange.
is a little strange unless somehow, if he was the one that did this murder, used that attic insulation as something to help the flame, to help the fire spread, depending on what type of insulation he bought back then.
Yeah, I guess I see your point. I wasn't thinking in that direction. I was thinking more about, as we often talk about, why would somebody buy groceries? Why would somebody do this if they were planning on running away or doing such and such? Was it that it's in his mind, but it's not set in stone? So he's going about his daily routines and his things, and it wasn't until the day of or the day before.
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah, we just don't know. Brittany's friend Cindy Anderson spoke with the Arizona Republic about the last time she saw her. The girls were at a sleepover on Friday, April 6th. At one point, they talked about death. She told the paper, "I remember Brittany saying that if she had to die, that she wanted to die in her sleep. I can only hope that she got her wish and didn't suffer." Okay, kids talk about death. That could have been just an innocent conversation, but could it have also been maybe a little bit that they were afraid of their dad? They were afraid that he was going to do something.
Sounds like it could have been a possibility.
The night before the murders, Robert attended Brittany's induction to the National Junior Honor Society, but sat away from the rest of the audience. One of Brittany's teachers came up to him to congratulate him on his daughter's achievement, but he just shrugged and said, "It's to be expected."
Like, why you congratulate me? This is the minimum that she should be doing.
I think if you're the teacher, though, you're thinking, it's an odd interaction.
Yeah.
Just say thanks and move on.
Yeah. I'm thinking here, man, he must have been kind of hard on these kids.
I think he was. I really do. On the evening of April 9th, 2001, Mary and Robert Jr. were at church to attend a hunting safety course. The class ended at 9:30 p.m. Robert and Brittany went shopping at camping and auto parts stores. One clerk told the police that it seemed like they were getting ready to leave town. The assistant store manager of Popular Outdoor Outfitters said Robert bought a pump-style water filter, often used by backpackers, a 64-ounce water container, and 2 containers of iodine pills to purify water. He made his purchase at 7:55 p.m. Around the same time, he went to Checker Auto Parts. Okay,
What?
I have all that stuff.
I was just getting ready to say, I think you have all that in that room right over there.
I do. I have one of those really fancy water filters. I've got the iodine pills. I've got large vats to store water.
Yeah, I remember you had me try that water filter pump thing. Well, you actually tried it on some dirty water and gave me a cup of water and said, "Here's your water."
It was great, right?
It was not. I think that's the one water pump thing that you decided you needed to return.
A neighbor reported hearing a loud argument around 10 to 10:30 p.m. that evening. Robert Fisher was last seen at 10:45 p.m. at an ATM where he was captured by security cameras. He withdrew $280. The police believe Robert may have killed his family after he went to the ATM, according to the Arizona Republic. The next morning, firefighters were called to the Fisher home when it caught on fire after an explosion. The explosion occurred at 8:42 a.m. The force of the blast ripped through the house. The flames that followed reached 20 feet and completely destroyed the home. Neighbors described the explosion as a bomb blast. According to the Arizona Republic, it was strong enough to collapse a neighbor's brick wall and rattle the frames of houses within a half mile. Okay, it's a pretty serious explosion.
It is.
Neighbor Phil Rudd told the Arizona Republic that he was watching TV when the explosion happened. He said, "By the time I ran out onto the street, the house was totally engulfed." Max Moody was half a block away. He told the paper, "There was a big boom, and then I watched debris come flying up into the air, a column of deep solid smoke, while flames were coming out of the windows." Firefighters responded within minutes and were able to keep the fire from spreading to other houses. But it was said that some of the firefighters' face shields melted from the heat.
Oh, wow.
I've never heard of that.
It's intense.
Well, I think what you can definitely see or tell here is that this wasn't an electrical appliance that caught on fire.
Right.
This wasn't a candle that got knocked over. This house went up very quickly, and it sounds like the whole thing was started by some type of improvised explosive device is what it sounds like. A series of smaller explosions forced firefighters to keep their distance from the house. This was believed to be caused by rifle ammunition or paint cans.
Okay. Such intense heat can do that.
Well, I can understand paint cans. I thought that I watched a Mythbusters one time, and I could be wrong about this, where they actually threw ammunition like into a fire and it didn't go off. They were trying to, do like in the movies.
Sure.
Where it starts firing off.
Yeah.
And I thought it was said that it doesn't do it that way, but I could be wrong.
Let's try that out our next campfire.
Okay. You stand right next to the fire and I'll fly the drone that drops everything. When first responders were able to enter the house, they found the bodies of Mary Fisher, Brittany, and Robert Jr. still in their beds. Robert was missing, along with the family dog. The authorities also noticed that Robert's truck was at the house, but Mary's Toyota 4Runner was missing. So that kind of blows your theory of getting the oil change.
It does. That's what I was just thinking.
Because you're going to take the truck. He doesn't end up taking the truck anyway.
No. But I think if you're going to go on a run, the 4Runner is probably a better vehicle. It's all enclosed.
So you could sleep in the back of it?
You could if you
Is that
had
what
to.
you're thinking of?
Yeah.
The Scottsdale police wanted to find Robert, at that point to make sure he's safe and to let him know what happened. Because, I think in a case like this, your thought in the very beginning is not, oh, this guy killed his whole family.
No, because who would do that to their family?
Sure. To most people, it's unimaginable.
Yeah.
So I think even as authorities, investigators, do you go straight to that? Probably not. Now, does it take them long to maybe start thinking about it? No, probably not either. Early on, the authorities said that Robert was not considered a suspect immediately after the explosion, but officers were advised to approach with caution. Scott Reed, police spokesman, said per the Arizona Republic, "We know he does have hunting rifles and guns. We don't know what to expect here." And we already mentioned it, Giz, but, Mary and the children, they didn't die in the fire. Mary was shot in the head. All three had their throats cut. Autopsy records stated that Mary's throat was cut so badly, it was all the way into her spine. Investigators theorized that Robert killed his family hours before the explosion, which he caused to try to cover up the murders. So, we said it right at first. They're not coming out and thinking that he killed his family, but it doesn't sound like it took him that long to get to that place. According to Unsolved Mysteries, the fire was too intense to be caused by a gas explosion. Investigators believed Robert spread gasoline around the house, then disconnected the gas line leading to the furnace. Scottsdale detective John Kirkham told Unsolved Mysteries, "As a source of ignition, we believe that a candle with a candle holder was used as a timing device in order to allow Robert time to leave the residence. Robert committed the arson in order to cover up the murders, believing that the bodies would be burned beyond recognition, covering up any sign of what had happened. But it didn't cover it up quite as well as expected." And I think that's something that a lot of criminals make a mistake on. Yeah, fire can cover up a lot of things.
Sure it can.
But it takes an immense amount of heat for, some time to really cremate a body. And most fires just won't do it.
No, I think we've done a few cases like this, and I can only really remember the one case we did where it had the multiple kids that they were never found. The bodies were never found. But then again, there was some people that said
They saw them.
They saw them, they were kidnapped and taken somewhere else. That's why their bodies could never be found. Yeah. So,
on April 11th, the police announced that the victims found after the explosion had been murdered. The police described Robert Fisher as a vital key to this whole puzzle, but would not yet call him an official suspect. On April 12th, Mary's father, Bill Cooper, publicly pleaded for Robert to come home. He told a reporter per the Arizona Republic, please keep writing good things about Robert. He's a good man.
He was really sold on Robert.
Yeah, I think we talked about some comments that Bill Cooper made earlier. I think Robert Fisher had him snowed.
Yeah.
The side of him that he put forward was of this, great family man. And so I think to Bill, there's no way, right, that he could have done this to his family.
Yeah, he wouldn't do this to my daughter, my grandkids. There's no way.
On April 13th, the police called Robert an official suspect for the first time. Arizona Department of Public Safety officers were instructed to arrest him if they saw him. A police alert described Robert as armed and dangerous. So, again, it didn't take long at all.
No.
It was just a matter of days until they officially listed him as a suspect. Some Arizona sheriff's offices said they were searching campgrounds and trailheads to look for Robert Fisher. On April 14th, the Scottsdale police announced they had expanded the search. The family's memorial service took place on April 17th. Almost 1,300 people were present, including 2 officers who were there in case Robert showed up to the funeral. And I actually think that's something that happens quite a bit.
I do.
Surveillance, plainclothes, officers, in plain clothes, kind of maybe acting as fellow mourners. There is a sense that maybe there's a good chance that the killer is going to show up.
Yeah, make an appearance.
On April 20th, 2001, Mary Fisher's vehicle was found in the forest near Young, Arizona. A police helicopter spotted the vehicle that afternoon at Red Lake Cave in the Hell's Gate Wilderness area. Kind of a strange name.
Sounds like a rough...
Hell's Gate?
Yeah.
The gate to hell?
It's like, hey, I'm going to really challenge myself here. I'm going to go into Hell's Gate.
There were reports that a man was spotted on the ground between the vehicle and a cave. He appeared to be aware that he had been seen. The pilot was likely searching the area because authorities learned that Fisher liked to camp in this area. Residents of a Buddhist camp saw somebody who looked like Robert in the area a week before the murder. Around 11 a.m., a camper reportedly saw Robert Fisher, his dog, in the vehicle, and this camper called the police. A police report contained a statement from the man who saw the vehicle. The man saw the 4Runner parked down a dirt trail in a stand of pine trees. He said, and I walked down the road and I see the nose of this car poking out of the bushes. This guy was parked hiding. You wouldn't camp like that. He didn't have a campfire going. It looked to me like the passenger side door might have been open, but I couldn't really tell. I turned around and walked in the other direction. Right off the bat, I figured that's that car. That's Fisher.
Well, that's true. He's onto something.
Well, yeah, no doubt. But it was later reported that he never actually saw Fisher. The police found crisscrossing footprints and a pile of human feces in some pine trees about 15 yards from the vehicle.
A good old pile of human feces.
Well, you got to go somewhere.
That's what I try to tell you every time.
Robert Fisher had a concealed weapon permit for his .38 caliber revolver, which, according to one neighbor, he carried in a specially made fanny pack. Now, I know you like to get your fanny packs specially made.
Well, I got that one that the one listener sent me.
Yeah, just to add to your collection, but I know you have a lot.
Oh, of course.
And
got one on right now.
Yeah, I don't know what you carry in there other than Twizzlers, but the authorities did not find this gun in Mary's vehicle or in the family home, which meant to them, Gibbs, that it was likely still with Robert. So I think you have to believe this guy is armed and dangerous. Robert's dog was found outside Acorn Cave, where Robert was believed to be hiding. The dog had porcupine quills in its face and looked like it hadn't been fed in days. And that's sad.
It is sad.
But it's also telling because, let's go back to Robert talking about the dog. Sometimes he talked about the dog in more glowing terms than he did his children.
Sure.
Seems to me as though he really loved this dog. So what does this tell us? That he either felt as though, taking the dog with him at that point would be too burdensome, or that it would be too easily identifiable.
Yeah, or if there's a third possibility that maybe something happened to him.
And the dog was left on his own. Over 50 officers, including a SWAT team, set up a perimeter around a nearby series of caves, but they focused on one cave with a narrow opening where they believed Robert could be hiding. Edward Hernandez of the Gila County Sheriff's Office said, Mr. Fisher is using the cave for some type of cover and concealment. He's not in custody yet. We can only hope. The police sent a camera into the cave, but they didn't find anything. The police did find a fresh set of footprints on the morning of April 21st. The footprints were found at Cave 41, which has multiple tributaries and crawl spaces. 8 SWAT officers searched the cave and bombed the entrance with tear gas. The police searched around the caves for 4 hours. But even when they brought in bloodhounds, they couldn't locate Fisher. And they had to end the search because of a coming snowstorm. The search was supposed to start the next day. The police worried that Robert somehow escaped. But they also acknowledged, and I think this goes to what you were kind of talking about, the possibility that Fisher may have ended his life. You said maybe he wasn't around, maybe he got in an accident. Yeah. Well, maybe he took his life. Detective John Kirkham later told Unsolved Mysteries that he believed Robert was alive because the vehicle was found a quarter mile off a Forest Service road in an area with a lot of traffic. There were places where he could use a phone or even get a ride.
Well, and I also remember earlier we were talking about the one friend or neighbor that said, if he gets out into the wilderness, you're never going to find him.
Because he knows how to live, water, food, that's all he needs.
Yeah.
And, really, some of those networks of caves are massive.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they stretch for, very long distances. There's a lot of, cutoffs and a lot of places to hide.
Yeah.
The search ended on April 22nd. County Sheriff's Deputy Andy Brunson said, according to the Arizona Republic, we have no idea where he is. We have no further clues. He might be hiding somewhere. He might have been able to get out of the woods. Who knows? The police tracked the footprints more than 4 miles down a dirt road into the Fort Apache Indian Reservation. Authorities concluded they probably belonged to somebody scavenging for elk antlers. Forest Service Patrol Officer John Selby told the Arizona Republic, I think he used the vehicle as a decoy and left the dog and hopped a ride with someone, but we've got to base everything on facts, and we don't have any yet.
Well, that's it, right? There's too many variables.
Well, and you can craft a bunch of different theories, and all of those sound possible. Is it easier to hitch a ride with someone without a dog? And I would say, yeah, probably so.
Absolutely.
A reported sighting occurred on May 1st. A man thought he saw someone who looked like Robert at the Oak Flat campground near Superior. The man left the campground in a truck without a license plate. Deputies searched the campground, but they didn't find anything. On June 26th, it was reported that the police believed Robert was dead. Officers prepared to launch a second search of the forest where Mary's vehicle was found. They conceded that they may have missed Robert's body. During the first search, they planned to have professionals crawl through some of the caves to look for Robert's body. And I mentioned that there's a lot of places to hide in the caves. There's The network is often very extensive.
Yeah.
If he was to have taken his own life inside that network of caves, could it have been missed? And I would say, yeah, probably.
Sure. That's where you need the professionals, or what do they call those guys?
Spunkers?
Spunkers?
Spelunkers?
Spelunkers? Get some spelunkers out here.
Deputies said they only searched 1.5 miles around the vehicle and conceded that Robert could have gone deeper in the woods or into the caves. The Scottsdale SWAT team was at the 41 cave for 8 hours, but they only searched the entrance and bombed it with tear gas. A cadaver dog didn't detect a scent, but that could have been because of the tear gas. That could also be because he wasn't dead.
Oh, that's very true.
At that point in time. On July 19, 2001, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office charged Robert with 3 counts of first-degree murder and felony arson. After the July indictment, a federal arrest warrant was issued charging him with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. The police later learned Robert had a rider put on his car insurance, allowing travel to Mexico shortly before the murders. The family had not been to Mexico before. So that's kind of interesting. But my thought is that if your plan is to murder your entire family,
right?
How worried are you about insurance on your car?
And are you going to actually file a claim? I don't think so.
I don't think you are. So I don't know. You're also kind of tipping your hand, maybe, that's where you're headed, unless this guy was smart enough to think, well, I'll put that on. They'll assume I went to Mexico.
Give me more time to go.
But that's not where I'm headed at all.
Right.
The case was featured on America's Most Wanted in August 2001. Afterwards, the authorities received hundreds of tips that stretched into Canada, Mexico, and even into the UK. On August 18, 2001, the police in Chester, Virginia, started surveillance on Pietro's Pizza, an Italian restaurant, when someone who identified himself as Robert Fisher called the America's Most Wanted hotline using the restaurant's phone. The call only lasted a few seconds. The caller said, "This is Robert Fisher. You will never catch me, and I'm glad I killed the bitch."
Okay. If it was even him, such a bizarre statement to make. And if it wasn't him, how cruel.
To play a joke like that? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he was that cocky to call.
Yeah, I mean, you can use the word cocky. Also, though, it would not be smart. Your profile has just been shown on America's Most Wanted. So people are going to be on the lookout for you. Why then pick up the phone and taunt police and take the chance that they're going to be able to track you down?
Right.
Seems more likely to me that would be somebody trying to play what they would think of as a prank or a hoax. I don't understand the need for so many people to do that.
I don't either.
But it comes up a lot in the episodes that we do. In October, Scottsdale detective John Kirkham, who was assigned to the case, told the Arizona Republic he believed Robert was still alive because his intent was to take care of his problem and move on with his life. No remorse, no regret. And I understand the detective's thinking. I have a feeling that this was a person in Robert Fisher who probably did have little remorse and very little regret about what he did. Now, what problem is he taking care of? The detective doesn't come out and say it. My only thought goes back to this whole, he never wanted to get divorced because of what he went through as a child. And so if he caught wind that she was about to divorce him, is that when he made the decision that I can't live with that, and the only way for me to prevent it is to kill my whole family?
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of. Now, it doesn't make sense to any of us.
No, but in him.
But in his mind, it probably did make sense.
Yeah. How can I move on knowing that she's leaving me? Mm-hmm. And how could I let what's about to happen to my kids and they go through what I went through?
Yeah.
So the easiest way is to kill my family.
And a person like that, if in their mind they thought they were doing the right thing, I could see how maybe they would have no remorse, no regret, because they still think, hey, I did the right thing. I did what I had to do.
Right.
As strange as that sounds. Kirkham said Fisher was probably living in another state and working a menial job. On June 29th, 2002, Robert Fisher was added to the FBI's 10 most wanted list. The FBI offered a $50,000 reward to anyone with information leading to his arrest. On June 7th, 2003, one of Robert's old neighbors called the police and said she saw him in front of his former house. The neighbor was sure he was Robert Fisher. The next day, a man contacted detectives. He looked like Robert Fisher, but was not. He claimed he was in the area looking to buy a used car. A man was arrested in White Rock, British Columbia on February 2nd, 2004. White Rock is just north of the U.S. border. The man bore a striking resemblance to Robert Fisher. He had the same facial structure, same short hair, the same surgical scar on his back, and a missing tooth where Robert once had a gold crown.
Sounds promising.
Sounds very promising. The problem is his fingerprints did not match Robert's. The Canadian police didn't release his name, but said he had a minor criminal record. He was staying at his girlfriend's home at the time of his arrest. He ran from almost 36 officers who surrounded the house.
Makes him sound even more suspicious.
Oh, yeah, suspicious of something. And it turned out that the woman's son called the police because he believed his mother was dating Robert Fisher. The boy told his dad that he thought his mom's new boyfriend was strange. They did some research and found Robert Fisher's picture.
That really seemed like that could have been a really solid suspect. Besides the fingerprint.
Yeah, I think once the fingerprints don't match, though, where do you go from there?
But could they have messed up the fingerprint process?
Possibly. The authorities followed up on numerous tips and reported sightings, but the next promising lead took place 10 years later. On October 11th, 2014, 2 men were arrested at a home in Commerce City, Colorado. The police were acting on a tip that Robert Fisher was in the house. It turned out that the men had no connection to Robert Fisher. They were held on possession of a Schedule II substance with the intent to distribute, obstruction, and possession of an illegal weapon. So pretty strange that you get a tip that Robert Fisher is in this house. He's not, but 2 guys are in there and then they're booked, on a bunch of different charges.
Yeah.
On April 8th, 2016, law enforcement released new age-enhanced photos of Robert Fisher at age 54. After release of the pictures, investigators received new tips. FBI Supervisory Special Agent Lance Lysing said, according to the Phoenix New Times, we've gone back to the very beginning where it all started. We've gone back and scrubbed the case, every interview, every report that was done, every item of evidence that was found. There are 3 main theories about what happened to Robert Fisher. The first is that he ended his life and his body has not been found. The second is that he's living in another place under a fake identity. The third is that he was on the run for weeks or even years, but has since died and has not been found. And I think all 3 of those are plausible.
Sure.
On November 3rd, 2021, the FBI removed Robert Fisher from the 10 most wanted fugitives list. The Phoenix field office issued a news release that said, although Fisher remains at large, he no longer fits established criteria for continued inclusion on the list. Extensive investigation, as well as continued media exposure from 2001 to the present, has not resulted in establishing Fisher's whereabouts or in his arrest. There have been no confirmed sightings of Fisher since his initial disappearance. Therefore, Fisher's continued placement on the list is not expected to result in any additional information that would lead to his capture. So that's pretty interesting. I didn't actually know that people were removed from the list unless they were caught. But I guess it does make sense because I'm sure at one point D.B. Cooper was on that list.
Sure.
And then they had to take him off. There's more pressing priorities of people that they have to get on. I just never thought about it that way.
It's not like they're forgotten. It's just like they're just not in that
there's just
big
10
profile.
There's only 10 spots.
Yeah.
So
if they put out the top 100, it's not going to have the
same
draw.
meaning.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah. And also, I think with one of the theories or two of the theories maybe being that he's no longer alive.
Sure.
Maybe that has something to do with it. Scottsdale detective John Heinzelman, currently working the case, told the Arizona Republic that the FBI had been debating whether to remove Robert from the list. He also said he still receives about 100 leads a year.
It's pretty promising.
It is. It seems like a pretty large number this many years on. Heinzelman told the news outlet Arizona's Family, "My personal opinion is time is against us to believe he's still alive. If alive, Robert Fisher is currently 62 years old. Anyone who has information on his whereabouts is advised to call Scottsdale Police at 480-312-5000. Fisher is considered armed and extremely dangerous. Robert Fisher is described as a white male, 6 foot tall, 190 pounds, with blue eyes and brown hair. He has a noticeable gold crown on his upper left first bicuspid tooth. He was described as walking with an exaggerated erect posture and his chest pushed out due to his back injury. He has surgical scars on his lower back. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading directly to Robert Fisher's arrest."
Hey, look, if he's still alive with his back problem, I can't imagine him living off the grid and in the woods and the forest, wilderness, whatever.
Yeah. So I've got some thoughts here. Initially, when people talked about his kind of survivor mentality, I thought, well, this guy, unlike many who we talk about, probably could live off the grid in a survivalist type capacity.
Yeah.
Away from people, in a cave, out in the woods where nobody goes, maybe. But then the more I thought about it, you kind of work in this, what was described as a pretty serious back injury. I started to lean, and I think where I lean right now is that he ended his life pretty early on, maybe inside those caves, but it was somewhere during the first part of the searching.
Sure.
And they just never found his body.
Which is very possible.
Yeah, I think it is. But, I don't know that you can rule any of them out. There is a scenario where he was able to live out on the run for a while, but then died.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. That could have happened just as easily as well.
If you're still out there, Robert, give us a shout out on the Google line.
Yeah, I'd like to get my hands on that $100,000 reward.
Yeah.
But that's it for our case on the Fisher family murders. Again, I'm always mystified by these men who are able to murder their families.
Yeah.
I will never understand it. Obviously, they're thinking in a way that most of us are not.
Correct. Yeah.
And I still go back to his parents' divorce, what it did to him, and this looming thought that I think he had that she was about to divorce him, and he just couldn't live with that.
Definitely was a traumatizing event for him.
And to your point, I don't think he wanted his kids to go through that. Again, it doesn't make any of it right, but no. I think that's what was going on in his mind. I really do. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Terry in Crawfordsville, Indiana, and I am listening to your latest episode of Unsolved, which is about a lady who disappeared between Carmel, Indiana, and Atlanta. You guys keep pronouncing it Carmel. Carmel is in California. Carmel is in Indiana. It's more like the candy you eat than the city by the sea. Anyway, great job, as always. Gibby, happy birthday late. Hope y'all are well. Hope y'all are having fun with all the smoke. We're suffocating. And keep up the good work. Keep your own time ticking. Bye.
I love a good caramel sundae.
I like caramel.
Do you?
Depending on how you pronounce it.
Now, if we can have the caramel or the caramel by the C.
So here's what I propose.
Yeah.
If it's spelled the same, let's just pronounce it the same.
Exactly.
Can we all get on the same page with that? Why does one city spelled exactly the same as the other have to be pronounced differently?
I just don't know.
I don't know. It makes it hard on us, though.
It does.
But we appreciate the clarification.
We do. Appreciate you.
Now, will we remember it for the next time?
That's
Hopefully.
up to you.
Hopefully so.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. This is China Pelkey. I'm from a really small town in Kentucky. I'm a travel healthcare worker, and right at the moment, I'm on my way to Ohio to my next assignment, and I was going through Cincinnati and saw the Dayton exit and thought about y'all because I was also listening to you. My husband and I have been listening for a couple of years. We finally made it through Solved and Unsolved. Now I'm in criminology, so I just wanted to say great job. I love listening. We've gotten a lot of listening done. The traffic here is crazy. And I kind of laughed a little bit because I'm currently on my way to look at housing with roommates. And the first thing I said was, I need to make sure they don't give serial killer vibes. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Coming through Dayton.
Yeah. You know, she mentioned that traffic. That traffic through Cincinnati, downtown Cincinnati, is brutal.
It is. Even through Dayton right now.
Well, even through Dayton. But depending on what time you go through Cincinnati, it can be nasty. It
can make you or break you.
It can. But I have a soft spot for people from small towns in Kentucky because obviously that's where a lot of my family comes from, small town Kentucky. All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Stream the biggest blockbusters this summer with Popcorn Summer Movies on Pluto TV. Experience nonstop action with the first 4 Mission Impossible movies and Top Gun. Laugh out loud to comedies like Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, and The Backup Plan. With thousands of free movies, Pluto TV has something for everyone. Available on live TV and on demand. Download Pluto TV on all your favorite devices and start streaming now.